inner voice. A heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is the Heartfelt Chat with Dr. Foojan podcast. Yep, it's me, Dr. Foojan Zeine, a psychotherapist, author, and the originator of the awareness integration theory. Our conversation here with our guests are all about what matters most in our life, our minds, our thoughts, feelings, actions, more than anything today, relationships, and our fulfillment in this beautiful journey of life. Many of you have asked about our latest book, and I wanted to share them with you. So the first book I want to share with you that just came out a couple months ago is Intentional Parenting. And the Intentional Parenting, it's written with two of my amazing co-authors, Nicole Jaffray, Dr. Nicole Jaffray, and Dr. Eileen Manukian, both experts in child development and early childhood development. And we take this book and we go chapter by chapter from infancy to adulthood and show you whether you're a parent, you're a teacher, you're someone who works with kids, you're a grandparent, you are teaching at any level with children. It's going to help you not only look at cognitive development, motor skills, and emotional development, but more than anything from the awareness integration theory, teaching you and looking at how you could be with your children so that they can grow up to be someone who's mentally healthy and feels responsible and accountable for their life and has high self-esteem and self-confidence. And I think those really, really matter with us, especially when we're raising our children, and to know what to do and how it impacts from what the latest studies that actually have happened. Now, for all of you who are therapists or coaches across the world, this book is for you. Awareness Integration Therapy, Clear the Past, Create a New Future, and Live a Fulfilled Life Now. This book was forwarded by Dr. Jeffrey Zeig. And this book takes you through all the 6 phases of awareness integration, teaches you exactly how to use it with your client to have the effect that you like and the connection that you like with your clients, and be able to utilize this in every aspect of their life. Foojan app is going to launch in January, so we're going to need a lot of therapists who are certified in awareness integration therapy, because I'm positive not only people are working with the app and love what they do and create a lot of great results, but a lot of people also tap into areas that need a little bit more work with someone. And some people just like working with other people. We become, amazing mirrors for them, and they like to do that. So that's the book for you. And you can get that from Amazon or my awarenessintegration.com or foojanzeine.com. Today, on this episode, I chat with Blaine Oelkers. He is a TEDx speaker, leading authority in personal implementation and consistency. Watch this. He is America's only Chief Results Officer. Yes, you heard it right. Only Chief Results Officer is a habit master with documented streaks of, I thought first was 1,555 days, but he corrected me because it's past. And now he had 1,702 days in a row and counting. As a top LinkedIn connector, he's got over 25,000 first level connections. Blaine graduated from Purdue University and Stanford University's social entrepreneurship program. He's powered by Self-Fluence, a personal development and training company. He's excited to share with you ways you can take control of your life by taking control of yourself. We will be talking about his latest book. Napoleon Hill wrote his book. Yeah. You'll see how he got Napoleon Hill to write the book with him. And the book is Think and Grow Rich. And you can get to know him more. Go to www.selffluence.com. Selffluence, SELFLUENC.com. I had a great conversation with him. He's a great presenter. I even threw things about me just onto the table so he could support me, and he gave me great ideas. So I'm sure you will enjoy this conversation as much as I have. Now, subscribe to my podcast on my YouTube channel. I love to hear from you. Any comments, any conversations, just share with me. Connect with me through my website, foojanzeine.com. Now, for all of you who are interested in actual self-help books, get my Life Reset book. It's the awareness integration path to create the life you want. And I hope that you can go through the book and really enjoy the book, and write, journal with it. And that way you can get the best out of it. So without further ado, here is Blaine back. Well, welcome, Blaine Oelkers. It's so nice to have you.
Oh, Dr. Foojan, thank you so much for having me on. And I'm excited. I've been listening to your podcast for a while, and I'll go on record as saying you are touching lives not yet born. Somebody's not even born yet. 20 years from now, 30 years from now, they're going to find these podcasts and they're going to find some tremendous value. So happy to be on today. Happy to share, happy maybe to talk about a book that I have, but also just happy to serve in any way I can.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Now, Blaine, you have been America's only chief results officer, and you said that you have a habit master with documented streaks of 1,555 days in a row and counting. Explain, please.
Yeah, so I should have updated my intro because today was day 1702, in a row. But I will say that for me, how I became this America's only chief results officer, really there were these two different moments of what I call like dawning comprehension, where the light bulb goes off and you have this kind of aha moment. And that's what kind of led me down this path. And the first one came when I was in college. Now, I was lucky, I think like most of the listeners, and like you too, I've always been kind of a seeker of knowledge. How can I do better? And I was in college, and actually it was in a psychology, I think it was Psychology Today magazine. And there was this little ad where you could send away for an audio cassette. Now, I'm dating myself. It was the 80s. Some listeners might not even know what an audio cassette tape is, but an audio cassette program. And it was the reading of an abridged version of this book called Think and Grow Rich. And it was actually read by Earl Nightingale, who ended up becoming one of my mentors. But I got this tape in the mail and I listened to it and I liked it and I read this book. And what happened, the first moment of dawning comprehension was me realizing that what you think about, you bring about. Now, I made a little acronym called YTABA. What you think about, you bring about. Later, I did a TEDx talk about that. But the power I got lucky because early on in college, I realized the power my thoughts played, in the reality that I created. Now, I realized I couldn't control circumstances, right? But I could control my reaction to those circumstances. And that's what kind of made all the difference. So I had that idea. I actually met my wife in college, and we're still married 30 years later. So that's good. I had a lot of business success. And so that was dawning comprehension moment number one. But the second one that kind of put me on a better, even deeper path was my degree's in computer science from Purdue University. And I was working for a software company. And I came back from this long business trip, and my son, Bo, he was about 1 year old. And so I come home and he's like giving me the cold shoulder. And so I said, "Hey, Beth, what's wrong with Bo? Like, is he sick or what's going on?" She says, "No, you were gone so long. He kind of forgot who you were." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" That like hit me like emotion. That hit me like deep. And then I realized when I was a kid, I came home to an empty house. And anyway, I had all this stuff. But the moment of dawning comprehension and what happened for me is I made a clarifying decision that night that no matter what, I was going to be a work from home dad, that I wasn't going to let this happen again. And so it took me a year. I started 2 businesses, kept my full-time job. But a year later, because we're kind of conservative, we want to have money in the bank. And my wife said, "Look, when your other thing," they didn't call it side hustle back then, but when your side hustle is making more money than your regular job, by all means, you can leave. But anyway, it took me a year, but I did that. And so I broke free from that job. And that was 27 years ago. So for 27 years now, I've been this kind of work from home dad. Kids are out of the nest now, but that gave me the freedom to pursue what I really liked, which was helping people take control of their lives by taking control of themselves, something I call self-fluence. And so I started helping people. I started helping mastermind groups, and they said, hey, you're helping us get so much results with your YTABA, what you think about, you bring about, that we're going to call you the chief results officer. And I said, I like that. That's a cool name. So I looked up and nobody was really using that name. So I went to the US Patent and Trademark Office and I got the registered trademark. So the R with the circle, which is a little more powerful than the TM. But that is how maybe a little bit of a longer story than you wanted, but that's how I ended up becoming America's only chief results officer. And I really feel like, God and the universe wants me to help people to take control of their lives by taking control of themselves. And most people need some help in that area. They know what to do, but they have trouble getting themselves to do it. I call it personal implementation. So that's what I've been studying, and I've been studying it a lot. And over the years, I've created different frameworks, which we could talk about, to make sure that you can keep a new habit. I call it the 21-second habit, how to create a new habit in 21 seconds, not 21 days. So we could do a deep dive on that. Other frameworks about hacking head trash, which I know you're big at helping people kind of get through things. But anyway, let me stop there and let you talk for a little bit.
Well, you have an interesting co-author, because the name shows up as this book is written by, let me show everybody your wonderful book. It's by Napoleon Hill and Blaine Oelkers Jr., Think and Grow Rich. And this is also a book study edition. So how did you get Napoleon Hill to write with you?
It's a good question. So what happened was I read the book in college, and I actually still have it right here. I read this paperback version. This is my actual one from the 80s. And I read that book. And like I said, I had some success. And I had enough success that I was able to purchase for $1,000. I purchased this book, which is one of the original 5,000 copies.
Wow.
So this is the original printing of the 5,000 copies. And when I opened it up, the first page here, said, what do you want most? And the first two pages were these like instructional pages. And I'm like, whoa, wait. I went and got my book. It's not in there. Those instructional pages weren't in there. And I realized that the original book was different from the one I read. And so that led me on a journey to try to find, because I was helping people. I wrote a little guidebook about how to get the most from the book. And then I went on this journey and I finally found someone who was selling the original version. So I used to buy it from him, and then he passed away and he stopped selling it, and I couldn't get the original anywhere. So I did some research, and luckily that original version was in the public domain. So I was able to take that out of the public domain, add my stuff, and create what's called the derivative work, which I can copyright. And so the book study edition is actually 3 books in one. It's that original version of the book. Then it's my guidebook, about a 40-page guidebook in the front. And then every chapter, I did a lot of book studies with people over and over and over. So I have it set up where I tell you what to look for before you read the chapter. And then after the chapter, I kind of do a book study with you. What are the most important things? What was the most important sentence? You put in your own answers, but I also share my own. So it's kind of book study, original version, and guidebook kind of all in one.
It's beautiful. It's an amazing way of creating what was there, which was very influential and workable, and bring it back into a way that it can be worked today with what is relevant today. Because I remember listening to some of the audio from Napoleon Hill, and although a lot of the things can be done for today, because these are just, masterpieces of conversation. But I think that when you bring it into examples of what's relevant today, it really goes into the heart of people who don't have access to these books anymore, or they're not even in their, kind of like reality frame anymore. So thank you for bringing that back, and, adding all the experiences that you have to and making it easy for us to read and work through. So let's now go based on what you have created in addition? For example, you talked about a 21 second
Yeah.
rule.
Yeah. So 21-second habits. Basically,
First habit, work with me.
Yeah.
First habit is to get me to stop with sugar and carb. Work
Okay.
with me. We have 21 seconds.
Well, okay, so there's two different things here. So the 21-second habit framework is how to create a new habit in just 21 seconds, not 21 days. Now, bad habit elimination, that's a different animal altogether. And so if you were going to say, hey, I want to decrease sugar and carbs or something like that,
Okay.
then we would kind of go through a framework for bad habit elimination, which is different than creating a new habit.
Okay, the creation of new habit is, thank you for clarifying that. The new habit would be to portion control each section of food that I eat.
Right. Okay. So if you want to create a new habit like portion controlling, let's say, there's kind of two key things to creating a new habit. And so, for example, let me start with one example on how I came about this discovery. Is my wife, she used to have nearly daily migraine headaches, right? And so the doctors said, hey, Beth, you have to keep this headache log, very detailed headache log, weather, barometric pressure, what she would eat, all these things. And she could only keep the log for a couple of days, then she would lose it or she'd forget to do it. And she couldn't keep that habit for more than 2 or 3 days. But then one night when she was brushing her teeth, I realized that she was, and we all are. So when we talk about like new habits or creating new habits, I want everyone to realize that you're already a habit master, right? And you already know how to create habits and you are kind of driven by your habits. And so my wife was brushing her teeth and I realized she is the 2 minutes, just like the dentist recommends, 2 minutes in the morning and 2 minutes at night, right? And so she does that. No willpower required, right? So the first step is habit linking. So when you're creating a new habit, you link it to a habit you're already a habit master at. So for example, she put the headache log underneath the toothbrush and the toothpaste. Now, when she brushed her teeth every night in the morning, she filled out the log. She couldn't do it for 2 or 3 days in a row. She went 90 days in a row, doing it every single day. Why? Because it was habit linked to a habit she was already a master at. So habit linking is the first key. The second one is what we call urge surfing. And that is that it's more powerful if you can actually surf the urge that you want to do something and use the power of that urge, kind of surf the energy behind that urge to get you to do that new habit. So for example, I mentioned, at the top of the show, my current documented habit of 1,702 days in a row. How that came about is I said, look, there's something I want to do every morning, a new habit. I want to do this Bible app, but then I want to do a mind shower. Now, most people, they will take a physical shower nearly every day. But how often are they washing their mind out? I mean, just like our bodies accumulate dirt and junk and garbage, we accumulate head trash every day on an ongoing basis, especially if you're watching news or social media or any of that stuff. So I wanted to clean that stuff out every day. And so I thought, okay, what could I habit link that to make sure I do it every day? What happens without any willpower on my part every single day? And what happens for me is the smartphone. Every morning, sometimes the alarm is going off on it, but every morning, without fail, without any willpower, without any thought on my part, I open up that cell phone, right? And so what I did is I moved all the apps off the homepage of my cell phone. I just put the 2 apps, the Bible app and I use Headspace, which is a meditation app, to do the mind shower. And then every day when I wake up, what I do is I open my phone and there those 2 apps are, but below that at the bottom of the phone are 4 apps. And one is my text messages, which always has messages waiting for me. And I really want to look at those messages. My son lives in Denmark. He usually texts during the night. Like I surf this urge to want to check my email and my messages and what's going on in the world and what orders came in and all that stuff. I surf that urge and say, no, I can't do those things that I really want to do until I finish these other 2 things. And these apps, they document how many days in a row you've done them. That's why I have kind of documented proof of the 1,702 days. So that the concept there is linking, urge surfing. And then the last part is leverage. And leverage is, what can you do, to kind of help yourself, but both the carrot and the stick. What kind of reward can you give yourself psychologically? Hey, if I do this new habit for 10 days in a row, I'm going to get some kind of, I'm going to buy this new watch I want, or something like that. What kind of reward? And then also, what kind of leverage or penalty? If you don't get it done, what kind of small penalty could you have? So both the kind of the carrot and the stick, works for that. And the other nice thing psychologically is, once you get 3 or 4 days in a row, you don't want to break that streak, right? You want to break the chain, right? So the chain of success kind of gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So to bring that back around, if you're looking at portion control in your eating, if you're trying to set up a new habit, right? So you want to control your portions, how can you do that? What kind of thing are you already doing? Like, let's take in your case, is there something that happens at each meal for you that you could link to?
I mean, I could link it to an hour, definitely time-wise, which I haven't yet, right? So I have a full on starting probably about 8 a.m. all the way to 9 p.m. and it's like back to back, with different things that I do. So right now it's more like whenever available, I just jump into the kitchen and, see what's in the refrigerator. So one of them is that I don't plan, because the planning is not there. So I'm there, I do whatever, and then with it, when my husband and I actually sit down to have dinner, then it's like this amazing food, so we just kind of like have whatever it is. So at this point it's all over the place. So
Right.
if I
Okay.
would,
Well,
maybe time is a good structure.
well, I mean, for you, something like that, with that kind of habit, you're probably looking at something that you can pre-decide, right? So that when you go to eat, you're reminded of what you want to do, right? And so, for example, you can have, well, for example, like plate size, right? So plates back in the 50s were like, a third of the size they are today, right? So one portion control method that some people use is they just eat with smaller plates. That's one. The other one is there's the plates that are divided into, say, 3 sections, right? So then, so this idea of having this kind of special plate or special size plates is just enough of a trigger to link to remind you, hey, let's not overdo that, right? And then if you have some kind of urge to eat more, right? Then how could you surf that urge in some way, right? So they say, oh, I feel like eating more, let me drink more water, every time I feel the desire to eat more, or knowing that, hey, I can have some more later if I want to have that, right? And then figure out some way that you could track that, so that if you do portion control for X number of days in a row, then you reward yourself in some nice way.
That's a great idea. I'm going to order those portion control sectional. They're sectional plates, right? That they have.
Right, right. I
Plates.
mean, it's almost, that one is more a little bit, instead of a new habit, that's almost a little bit more down the track of a bad habit elimination. Like, I have the habit of overeating, right? And so in that, in bad habit elimination, what we look at is why. You have to have kind of a, why do you want to do it? You need a big why. And then you need a substitute habit, right? So you need to have something to kind of substitute, for that other, for the bad habit, right? And then you have to remove or minimize the cues and the triggers, right? So if you say, look, I want to portion control, okay, we don't want to overeat. So coming up with a good reason, like, why do you not want to overeat? Like, what is that reason? And maybe it's weight, maybe it's health related. I remember when I saw my father-in-law, he smoked all the time, couldn't quit. And then one day he quit cold turkey, and he didn't have a cigarette for the remainder of his life, which was like 12 or 15 years. And all it took was one big why. And we said, look, Papa, you can't be around the grandkids, when you're smoking or you recently smoked. And that was all it took. He had a big enough why, he quit, never had another one. The substitute habit. So for you, if you're saying, I don't want to overeat, what's the substitute habit? What is something like you could drink more water, or you could have something that's, low calorie, like a salad, some kind of substitute in, for kind of the overeating, side of it as well. And then minimize, what are the cues and triggers? Like what are those things, like when the next time you overeat, right? Think back in that moment, try to figure out what was the cue or the trigger that caused me to do it, right? And a lot of times it's stress, or you had a bad day, or it's some other emotional thing that you're just kind of eating for the comfort of it all. But you may also discover some other reason for the overeating. The food was really good. You ate so fast that you didn't give your body chemically enough time to say, I've had enough. Right. When my wife and I, when we tend to overeat, we say, okay, every time we take a bite of food, we have to let go of the utensils completely.
Right.
We also tend to talk more during dinner when we do that. So you take a bite, you have to actually release the utensils. And sometimes that's enough, just that slow down, and maybe the substitute is better conversation, or something like that. Sometimes we have these little table discussion cards that are on the kitchen table too, that you can just pull a card out and ask kind of a very open-ended question. That's
There
kind
are a
of
lot
fun
of
to do
great
too.
things. Yeah, mine I think is just basically just loving the taste, and it's just this part of the taste covers and holds the stance of, I just want more of that pleasure. And I'm bringing extra some examples of, so that it becomes really real, not only for me, but also everybody who's listening to us. I'm sure everybody has one thing that shows up in their brain then is like, ooh, how can I do that? You also in your book have the creating your bring about statement. So share about how to create the bring about statement.
Yeah, sure. So in the book, this book, Think and Grow Rich, it talks about Think and Grow Rich, but the riches can be riches of any kind. And he talks about financial, obviously, but he also talks about, harmonious relationships, your health, right? So it's bringing about anything that you want to bring about. And so your bring about statement is where you come up with this statement, which you want it to be very specific, right? Very specific about what is it that you want to bring about, in your life, or it could be in your business, right? And so you want it to be, kind of specific and measurable, achievable, realistic, have a timetable, be energizing, and also be recorded in some way. We call that smarter kind of goals. But the bring about statement is you talk about what is that thing you want to bring about, right? And so that could be a personal thing, like it could be something like, I want to exercise, every day for 30 minutes between now and the end of the year, and so now it's got the end of the year, it's got a time, it's measurable. Is it achievable, doable? It is. You might want to pre-think to make it as easy as possible, right? But that's the bring about statement. Maybe in your business, you want to reach a certain level or a certain number of clients or a certain sales figure, but you want it to be very specific. So it's not just like, I want to build a bigger business. That's your brain can't target in on that. And the parts of your brain, this thing at the back of your brain called the reticular activating system, the RAS, that's the thing that takes all the inputs and decides what the conscious mind gets to see. And so as you begin to build this bring about statement, your subconscious mind is going to be helping you through the bridge of this reticular activating system, putting the right things that can make or help you get there if it understands where you want to go. The reticular activating system, a good example of how that works is my son, when he bought his first car, it was a maroon Acura TL. I didn't even know what that car was, but he sent me this picture. He was so happy. It was kind of emotional. And then, if you wouldn't know it, for the next about 2 weeks, People are pulling up in that car next to me. That's all I see in the lot. They're everywhere. All of a sudden, they're in my whole life, right? Was it like a conspiracy where they just drove all these cars around me? No. What it was is they were always there, but I wasn't tuned into them. But once I got tuned into them, then I saw them everywhere. And it's the same thing for what you want to bring about. The more exact you can get, the better picture you can create for that, the better. So the bring about statement initially is that thing that you want to bring about, very specific with a timetable. You feel like it's achievable and measurable and that kind of stuff. And then Napoleon Hill, in the book, he takes it a little bit further, and he believed in the law of attraction with action. So my little saying, what you think about, you bring about. You have to play an active role in bringing about. It's not just think and happens. And so the bring about statement says, whatever it is, and then in return, you're going to give what? Like, what are you going to give in return? If it's your business, you may say, I'm going to give an extra 10 hours a week. If it's, your health, you might say, I'm going to give my body 30 minutes a day. I mean, what are you going to give in return, for that thing? And then I like to break it down further and have you create an initial plan, not a full plan, doesn't have to be complete, but an initial plan, and then an initial next step. And that next step needs to, we like to say, dial down the resistance. So it's very easy to get moving, to get going, right? The next step might just be, you know what, this weekend I'm going to spend 30 minutes really, thinking about my plan, right? And that's kind of your next step, is to put that 30 minutes into your calendar and get it started and get it going. And so you're going to find that your level of hope goes up. Once you get clarity, energy comes from getting clear and then beginning to move in that direction. So if you get clear, I call it, you're going from point A to point B. I call it your point B. Once you figure out what your point B is and you start to move towards it, that's where the energy comes from. Then kind of done becomes the engine of more. You win the battle of the brain chemicals. You're in a good mood. You're getting stuff done and you're moving forward. Now, sometimes you can have some head trash and it's hard to get started. But once you get started and once you get moving, that's the key. And the goals are really there to give you the zest and the energy for life. Not necessarily be like deadlines of disappointment. Many of my bigger goals, I didn't reach them first go around. I moved towards them though. I moved towards them every time. And that was energizing. And then, hey, if the deadline, like I've got the end of the year deadline, I'm not where I wanted to be, but I made some great progress, and I'll reset my goal here, at the beginning of the year.
And it's interesting that you say that. I remember one of the goals that I had was to bring about awareness integration into universities, and especially to the, that age group, because it had shown that when we've done the studies, it has shown that it minimizes depression and anxiety. And one of the most important groups who had high levels of depression and anxiety were the college students. And also it was right in the adulthood, which if they had that kind of skills that could really support them in, building their life as an adult. And we strategized, we worked, we went through all of these processes, and it didn't happen. And we just kind of like held that construct. And you have in your book, you talk about desire, you also talk about faith and kind of visualizing the desire, holding on to it. And like you just said, even if the first round didn't work, it was held. And then it was interesting that some people changed within the dynamic, and then they came to me from one of the universities that we had actually done the work, and then they said, oh, we don't have even a mental health track, so would you like to create the mental health track? And I'm like, yes, and this is what I want to do. I want to put the awareness integration theory and put it as one of the first one, and they agreed. And systematically, we first put it as a pilot, and then it went in. So it was more like, yes, the first round, it didn't work. And just holding the vision and knowing that it'll show up at one point. Like I'm doing the act, I'm talking, I'm going, I'm knocking at the doors. And some doors were just not the right timing or the right, essence, or the vision didn't align. And then suddenly from another angle, the vision got, because the angle that I was going toward, which was very specific, didn't have a place in the bigger institution. But when they found, oh, what is bigger for us and is important for us is the concept of mental health. Now you can fit this theory within it because that's exactly what it does. It suddenly showed up. And, the first course I started teaching in the university. So it's as I'm hearing you also, and I experience it, is knowing exactly what you want, but being open that you could create it in so many different angles, and it doesn't have to be created only in the vision that you have. But if you hold the vision, it just, other ways that vision can be created and aspired, it gets created, right?
Yeah, 100%. And you had to have the faith there, right? Belief in things not seen yet, that was going to come about. And you also had this like deeper desire for it to come about that wasn't extinguishable as a desire or a flame or a light inside of you, right? So you hold it there. You're right. And then the universe, will at some point align with you, or you're going to hear something from another direction, right? I mean, that's happened to me many, many times. It wasn't exactly the way I thought it was going to happen, but it came in kind of opportunity knocked from another door, might have been the back door, but still, I was open to it because I knew what I wanted, right? I knew what my desire was. I know why I'm here, and so things that are going to move me in that direction, I'm going to go with them, but I'm holding the space, right? I'm holding the opening. I'm tuning in. I'm looking for, the maroon Acura TLs. I'm looking for them, and you're going to find them. And it turns out that a lot of life, I think, ends up happening really based on the lens that you are looking at life through, actually ends up dictating the reality, like your physical, chemical reality. What I mean by that is this concept of what you think about, you bring about. But the lens, like if the beginning of the day, I said, look, I'm sorry, but today is going to be a really bad day for you, right? If I told you that in the beginning of the day, and then you go out and you're almost hit by a car, you'd say, oh, Blaine was right. I was almost hit by the car. You'll be shaking. What else bad is going to happen? Your physiology would really be nervous and tight, and you'd be scared at every corner, right? And that was the circumstance, and that was your lens. But in that same morning, if I said, today's going to be one of the best days of your life, and you're looking at it through that lens, and the same action happens. You're almost hit by the car. You say, Blaine was right. I was almost hit by the car, but I was spared. I'm alive. The universe, God, they still want me here. I still have things to do. You're happy. You're excited. And your physiology is totally different. The circumstances didn't change, but your lens did. And that ends up really creating your whole reality. And that's how people create their realities. Now, we can't, it's not what happens that determines our life future. It's what you do about what happens. So yes, bad things are going to happen. Bad things happen all around. We all have them happen. But what you do about it, that's the thing that really makes the difference. And I do think that lens. So in the morning, every morning I do my mind shower, but I really try to clean that lens off and make sure I'm looking at the world in a lens that's going to serve me.
I'm also aware of mine and a lot of my clients and my students as I work with, which is the duality of the desire on what you want to create. And I watch this with myself a lot, which is the duality of I want to reach, 8 billion people. And then on the other side is, oh, I don't want to be noticed. I don't want people to see me. And I want to hide and isolate. And it's funny because the two of them are such an opposing construct, and they show up almost similarly at the same time. And at times they were flipping. So it was like, yes, I want this and I want that. And that desire comes about. And then suddenly like this stops and then the other one comes. Because I've been like meditating and really watching, the awareness part of my technique is constantly watching. Now I'm seeing them side by side. And I look at it and I'm like, okay, that is so adorable and cute, but we're not going to get anywhere because there's such an opposing concept that as long as I don't come to terms with one of them and honor one of them and do something about, like put one of them in action, it's almost like taking one step forward and then backward, and then one step forward and then backward. And it's almost like, I'm not going anywhere because there's two opposing needs. and desires, or there's one opposing desire and one opposing need, and they're, clashing at each other. What are your suggestions from your perspective and your methodology?
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of the age-old question is this competing priorities, right? And the main one for a lot of people is this concept of work, business and family, right? And you want this greatness in both. And so the first thing that that you can do, the simple thing is one of my mentors, Jim Rohn. He said, wherever you are, be there. So the first thing that you can do is that whatever you find yourself doing, really be there, be in the moment. Don't be at work thinking about home and then being at home thinking about work. Wherever you are, be there. That's the first thing you can do, is to really pour yourself into the now. What you're doing on, what you're working on right now. When it's work time, work. When it's playtime, play. When it's family time, and really, really be there. So that's the kind of tip number one. The second thing is to really be honest with yourself and figure out, is there a higher priority on one over the other? Now, it can move, family, when our kids were young, family was a very high priority. When they left the nest and went off to college, it doesn't have to be that as high a priority as it once was, right? So life can change, and there are going to be periods of out of balance. You may need to say, family, I'm going to do this. Like I talked about that 1 year where I probably pushed my marriage to the brink. When I started 2 companies and had my full-time job, and we had our first child, and then we had a second one on the way. So bad timing there, but it was total out of balance. For that period of time. But that out of balance allowed me later to swing the pendulum all the way over to the family side, which was great. So that's number 2, is periods of out of balance. The next one is that where can you get better? Right? Jim Rohn, my mentor, he said, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. And I was like, whoa. Bingo, right? And I realized as I started newer businesses, I said, well, I want to start a business that has no daily operations, like no daily operations on my part, so that I have the free time, but it can make a profit without me having to do any of the work, right? So just having that, improving myself, gaining wisdom, to figure out, how can I do it? How can I build a team and make it profitable, make the price points correct? How can I build this thing, so that it can run without me? Right. And so getting smarter, can allow you to then, spend more time in the areas that you want to spend time in. And then another last one is that if you always have these competing priorities, what's, and this, as a psychotherapist, you might be able to take people deeper, but something's underlying that, like either the fear of success, or the fear of too much success, or the fear of not being successful, or what are other people going to think, or maybe you have old head trash about what money is and how hard you have to work. And I see people make a lot of money and they're not working that hard at all. So there could be some underlying, I call it head trash, that limiting beliefs that you might have to deal with if you're constantly, having those things go against each other. But those are a couple thoughts on it.
Beautiful. Everybody, get this book by Napoleon Hill and Blaine Oelkers, Think and Grow Rich. And you have the book study edition, and you can go through you can actually go through the book, and it has places that you could jot down and write, and you could go step by step through the book. Blaine, anything we haven't touched upon that you really want people to know?
I think the only thing would be, to really understand the power of your mind. It's a lot stronger than you think. And, how to use it. Like, you don't need anything more. You're just probably not maybe utilizing it, to its fullest. You are a habit master. You are a productivity master, and you've shown that before in your life. So just honor that, acknowledge that, and lean into the power of your mind, and pour into that mind, right? I do a mind shower in the morning, but feed your mind. I do have one of the things that I've been really enjoyed doing, was kind of a bucket list, I did a TEDx talk. So I think that's the last thing, where in that TEDx talk, which is only like 14 minutes, I talk about this concept of white table, what you think about, you bring about. And I show you a little bit of a mind hack, or a way to remind your brain of your bring about statement more than 100 times a day in kind of an elegant, simple way. So I think that would be, if I leave the listeners with that, if you want to get that, you can just go to blainetedx.com, BLAINETEDX.com. And yeah, we'll be connected then. If I can help you in any way, happy to do it.
And where can they get your book?
The book is masteringtgr.com. So I did kind of a self-publish on it, masteringtgr.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me. And I'll leave the listeners with this. The bad news is time flies. The good news, you're the pilot. So pilot well, my friends, pilot well.
Beautifully said. And for all of you who are with us, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, bye-bye.